Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Daytripper Photo Show. Today, we're talking about the best kit for the job. And there's a lot of things that means. It could be the best camera for taking a trip. It could mean the best camera that's right for you. It could mean a lot of things. What lenses are going to work for you, and so on. But primarily, what we're going to get into is the stuff that always gets asked to us. Like on any day trip, I always have people coming to me and saying, "What lenses should I bring?" Or, "What camera should I bring to this trip to Africa?" Or something like that. It's really hard to answer that question as a person who sells gear. I want to tell you, here's the lens for you to buy. As a person who's a photographer, I'd rather really just say, what are you taking pictures of? Because that should click in your mind what kit is right for the need. So we're going to talk about that today. Gabriel, this all started from a rant that Gabriel wanted to have. So, Gabe, why don't you quickly let us in on this rant that you wanted to have? Which you have plenty of opportunity later. I know there's no whiskey involved tonight, so it's not going to be as dramatic. But
yeah, I wanted to have an angry whiskey-fueled rant about how I was wrong that the best camera is not the camera that you have on you. The best camera is your best camera, which I said before, and I was blinded by the seductiveness of the phone camera. And
what do you mean by that?
Well, it's nice to
seductiveness of a phone camera. I mean, seriously, it's a phone camera.
Yeah, but it's I went camping and I was taking pictures with it, and the pictures were coming out nice, and then I was editing them on the iPad, and the pictures looked nice, but then I went, and I do all my paid work, and I've got all my nice gear there and stuff like that, but it's different shooting paid work than it is shooting personal stuff. And then we went to a friend of ours, his daughter's second birthday party. And this is, I'm very close with the family, very close with all the daughters. This is one daughter that I was supposed to be the godfather for, but then he found out that I was a godless heathen, and apparently with the rules, I'm not allowed to be a godfather if I'm an atheist. Weird.
I guess atheists can't look after kids either, right? That is weird. Are you there? You there?
I don't know where it went.
Did you lose my audio? You just lost my video.
Yeah,
my webcam decided to not be a webcam anymore.
Oh, that is weird. Maybe it's because you're godless heathen, so the world's lashing out at you.
It could. And that would make sense. I mean, you know what? It's because I said that I was a god, and I'm really not. I'm a Pastafarian. And the flying spaghetti monster is punishing me for my insolence. But no, and then we went and we shot this birthday party, and we had all of our gear, and we had the 5D Mark III and the 7200, and I'm looking at the pictures, and I edited the pictures quickly on my computer. They didn't need a lot of work, and I sent them off, and I mean, everybody was just blown away. Like the camping pictures, and like, oh yeah, those are really nice, and then you take pictures, the best gear that you have, and it's something completely different.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just a whole entirely different level. And there's no way that you could get pictures like that with a camera phone.
And that's what we're going to talk about. And that's the whole point. Like, you have to pick the right thing to do what you're trying to do. Michelle asks already in the Q&A, did he get smited? Yes, Gabriel was smote.
Smote?
He's been smoted.
I was smoked. Yeah. It's full of pasta.
All right. Well, hopefully he'll get his webcam worked out in a bit so we can see his pretty face. But Phil, you've got something to say there? Welcome to the show. Hi. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me again tonight. But I thought I'd comment on this this whole idea of. Okay, he's gone again. I'm guilty of taking pictures with this thing because it's convenient, it's in my pocket, but that's just it. I take pictures with my phone, but I take photographs with my camera.
Oh,
deep stuff.
Deep thoughts.
And that's valid. Everything has its place. There's a different purpose for each tool you have, right?
Yeah, like I take great pictures of my dogs and whatnot with my phone when they're doing cute things because I don't have time to grab my camera. But if I'm driving down a country road and I see a truck that has a tree growing out of the back of it, which is actually really cool, up near Tottenham, in between Tottenham and Beaton on the 7th line, there's an old truck, looks like a 60s, maybe 50s pickup truck that's been there for a while, and there's actually a tree growing straight out of the bed of it. It's all rusted, looks really cool. So I brought my camera out so I could take a picture of that tonight. And it was really cool. And I wouldn't have gotten the same result with my phone. Mind you, I, ironically enough, didn't bring the right lens.
You see, that's a good point. We're going to talk about that too. But you made a good point, Phil. Just earlier today, Dixie was in the window and she had her tongue stick out a little bit, and it just wasn't going in. It was just sticking out. So I wasn't going to go crack open my camera bag to grab my camera and put on a 50mm 1.8 and muck with some settings. I just grabbed my cell phone, and there you are. There's if it ever focuses, because my webcam just seems to suck. But anyway, there's Dixie with her tongue sticking out, and the picture's actually quite sharp, and it did a good job. It's just not working with this webcam. Anywho, Mark, greetings from Truro, Nova Scotia. Mark is all over the place. Today he's in Nova Scotia. He's been there for a little while. He took some shots of the eclipse there, which we just had, which was really cool. And Mr. Leduc, good day to you, sir. It's always good to have Joe watching the show. All right, so we talked about the right kit for the job, and as I've already said, to me it isn't a question of what gear should you bring. It's a question of what images will you be making. Okay, speaking of making images, Gabriel seems to have found a new toy.
I'm just getting my color balance.
The color balance grilled cheese sandwich.
Well, I'm noticing that it was kind of yellow. And I noticed that my grilled cheese was yellow, so I realized that if I put my grilled cheese up to the camera, it adjusts the color balance on my... So I'm just going to be grilled cheese head. I didn't mean to interrupt. I'm just, there's nothing distracting about what I'm doing.
Nothing. And now you're yellow again. Use the grilled cheese, man.
It's a surprisingly large difference.
It is a huge difference.
Yes. With grilled cheese. Without grilled cheese. I'm baffled.
It's unbelievable. We should call Gary Fawn. He can market it.
It's going to be like $85.
Yeah, right. Let's go back to the Q&A for a sec. Hello, Ron, and hello, Andrew, as well. I love when people are joining in the Q&A. Let's talk about this Q&A for a quick second. If you're watching this Hangout Live right now and you don't know what a Q&A is, if you hover your mouse over the window that you're watching, along the left side of the window, a little box will open up and it'll say Q&A. There'll be a little indicator there. Click on that. Along the right side, you'll be able to type in your questions and chat with us. Keep in touch with us during the show. And the reason why you might want to do that is because what we're going to be getting into are some scenarios that we've run into and how we decided to choose the gear that we wanted to bring. And if you have some of those scenarios in mind as well, some questions about a place you may be going, and you have a question about what should I bring, what lens should I use, and so on, we can answer it, but more of a conceptual way rather than this is the product that you need. There's a lot that bothers me more than this, but one of the things that that I always get stressed out about is when people ask me what lens should they bring on a day trip. Now, I'm always going to give you a suggested list of things to bring, and generally if we're doing something fairly average, I'll say something like 18 to 200 millimeter range, and then the question comes back to me, do I need to buy an 18 to 200, or no, I just need something within that range. It's pretty flexible. So how do we choose what lens that is? We're going to get into that. First, though, before we get into that, I just want to say a quick shout-out to Nick and Matt, who did the Amazing Race Canada. These guys, they came in second place. I've been talking about this for a while. They've been on the Amazing Race. They've been doing so well. It's my buddies, the Flatliners, Asylum and Burns, wrestling tag team duo that was on the Amazing Race Canada. They did awesome. They came in second place. They only lost by a hair. It was pretty much a foot race to the end, and they are big, burly wrestlers, so they don't usually win foot races. But they did really well. Congratulations, Nick and Matt. Well done. You guys represented Canada well, and you represented wrestlers well, and you worked well together, so it was really cool to watch. All right, so that's enough pandering to the wrestling guys, because I just think they're awesome. But just to remind everybody, if you're watching this on YouTube, please click like right down at the bottom of the video. It helps us know if we're on the right track and if we're doing the right things on the show. If we don't see likes, then we cry every night. At least I do. You guys don't really have the same kind of emotional attachment to likes as I do. I have a very large attachment to likes. I don't want to go with this. Let's move along. Oh, by the way, if you want updates on what we're doing, subscribe to the YouTube channel. That way, every time we launch a new show, we post it, you'll get an update right away saying, hey, there's a new video from Daytripper Photo. So subscribe to the Daytripper Photo channel. And also, please join the Daytripper Photo community on Google+. There's a lot of really great things that go on there. Always new opportunities to get out and try some different things. And you always learn something. Ask questions. It's a great group of people. That's one of the things that I keep hearing about since the expo is everybody just thinks everybody is so giving and willing to give their time, and I think that's really important, and I love the fact that our community is like that. So very good. Also, one last thing, I just want to send a quick thank you to our sponsors, and that would be LensPen. Mostly LensPen. These guys have been with us for quite a while, and they give us lots of cool gizmos and gadgets. Like one of their little toys that they gave us was the Peeps. The Peeps are the eyeglass cleaners that you can go on and clean glasses. Oh, Phil, I didn't show you this yet, did I?
I don't think so.
What the Peep looks like. I wanted to show you this because you're the only one of the three of us that wears glasses. So this is the LensPen Peep. Yoink. Again, camera doesn't know how to focus. I gotta work on this thing. Do what I gotta do. There we go.
I believe you had a device to clean a lens.
I know. Oh, look, and it worked too.
Works.
It actually worked. All right, so here's the Peeps by LensPen. So what you do with this thing is you peel it apart, and you've got these little pads inside. It's actually working really well right now. And you put those over your eyeglasses, and you just pinch the sides like that, and go clean the glasses. Then you go to the other one, do the same thing. And when you're done, there's a little charge thing inside here. And as soon as you put it back inside, it charges those pads back up again, and it's good to go again. And you got a little brush, which is super cool. So the Peeps come in all kinds of different colors. These things are super cool. And thank you, LensPen, for hooking us up sometimes. Also, I just want to send a quick thank you one more time to Boston Pizza. They really pulled through for the photo expo that we had a couple weekends ago. And I brought my mother there just recently, and we had a great dinner. Their food has gotten way better than when I first went to the Boston Pizza here in town, and I'm very impressed with the new owner, Carrie, and all the folks that work in this location in Newmarket. So, guys, check out Boston Pizza. Tasty stuff. They helped us out a lot, and they have very good food. Okay, Gabriel. He's not here right now.
Yeah, he's on mute and disappeared.
He's a mutant, so he's disappeared. Isn't that what you just said?
He's on mute and disappeared.
Oh, yes, and he's a mutant. Cool.
Although similar.
Oh, Kathy, like my sound effects. Yeah, I've practiced that squeaky sound before. And hello, Veronique. She's awesome. She was at the expo, too. Lots of cool people in the community. All right, so let's talk about some of this stuff. Let's get into the nitty-gritty. Let's talk about the meat and potatoes. What do you think, Phil?
Yeah, sounds good.
Awesome, cool. So
don't take good pictures, but they're quite tasty and good for you.
Meat and potatoes, yes. You're right. Good. Nice little... Phil there. Get it? Phil. There. Look at that. Sorry. Okay, so let's talk about if we were going to take a trip to Africa, Phil. A lot of people come into the store all the time and they're like, Brian, I'm going to Africa. I need to downsize my kit. What do I do? Do I bring my cell phone? Do I bring a point and shoot? Do I buy like one of those P900 Nikons that have 5 million times optical zoom and, take great pictures of the moon? What do we do? What's your thought on something like this? I know you've done trips with Martin to Costa Rica and some other places, and you're used to having to travel with a larger camera kit. I was going to say larger package, but that could be misconstrued. But if you're traveling to these places, where's the compromise? Do you say, screw it, let's just bring the most expensive, best quality stuff, or do I just say, let's downsize and bring something that's convenient?
I think that really depends on the kind of trip you're going on. If you're going on like a family vacation, you know what, maybe downsizing is a good idea. Maybe you bring the point and shoot instead of the SLR with the 3 lenses and your flash. But I think if you were traveling and your goal is to take pictures, then you want to bring the best of what you have. You don't want to sacrifice your pictures. You don't want to sacrifice your ability. Going somewhere and cutting yourself short on bringing something that maybe you didn't want to bring. Not that you didn't want to bring, that you opted to bring because it was smaller or lighter. Like, you can wear the same pair of pants for a week. So if that means, not bringing 3 pairs of pants means you get to bring a larger lens, might be a better choice.
That's a good tip. That's valid, though.
Yeah, well, in most places you travel, you have a pretty good leeway. You're generally restricted to what your carry-on luggage weighs. Because when you travel, you generally want to keep, and I know this goes without saying, but you want to keep your lenses and your camera with you. Mainly because that way it doesn't go missing, and 2, you've seen the YouTube videos of what they do with your luggage. So
yeah, they have big gorillas in there, don't they? They step on your stuff.
Pretty much, and throw it against the wall, and somehow brand new luggage. As soon as you go on one trip, it looks like it's been around for years. So you're generally limited to what your carry-on is. Now, most airlines, that's a relatively decent weight, and you can fit most of your lenses and stuff all together. But I think it really depends on what your goal for the trip is. If your goal is to take pictures, don't sacrifice your pictures by opting to bring a lower quality lens because it's lighter or smaller.
So what determines a lower quality lens or a better quality camera? I mean, a lot of compact system cameras now, those mirrorless interchangeable lens format cameras, MILFs, a lot of those cameras will have excellent quality. Some of them are APS-C sensors. You could buy a Sony A7 that has a full-frame sensor. I mean, what differentiates something like that product from a Nikon or a Canon kit, like a full-size DSLR?
I think it would come down to mainly size. If we were having this conversation, let's say 2, 3, 4 years ago, there'd be a pretty big difference. You'd have a limitation on lens selection. You'd have a limitation on, functionality. If we went to one of the older, not to pick on them, but let's say Sony interchangeable lens cameras, the ISOs on them weren't that great. They were super grainy, super noisy. But if you look at something not as expensive as the A700, but one of their smaller ones that has the smaller size sensor in it, you get awesome pictures out of that. And the biggest difference between it and, let's say, something like this is you've removed the mirror out of it, which means you now have a shorter distance for the light to need to travel, so you can have smaller lenses. So instead of carrying something like this, carry something that's maybe a little smaller. And it really depends on what you're shooting. Like, a good example is back a couple years ago when we both were at the Newmarket store. We had Nathan as the manager. And Nathan, for the longest time, had a bunch of camera gear. He had, I think, a 5D, I think it was only Mark 1 at the time, and maybe a 7D or something. But when he had his kid, he sold off all of his Canon stuff, and I know that because I bought one of his lenses, and he purchased one of the Sony interchangeable lens cameras. And he did that so that when he was traveling with a diaper bag and juggling a kid, he could still take great pictures, just with a lot smaller of a package. So really, there's no huge difference. I'm going to say, as far as, let's say, normal quality and usability, I will say that there isn't the same, or at least I still don't feel that the same lens selections out there, and I still don't feel that the same kind of accessory markets out there for some of these smaller interchangeable lens cameras. But for the most part, the picture you take with camera A and the picture you take with interchangeable lens camera B can be a really similar quality.
Yeah, one of the things that I always think about is you have to have proper dynamic range. And that's key. And if we look at the current cameras that are out today, our dynamic range on cameras is anywhere from 6 to, let's say, 14 stops. The D750, for example, the Nikon D750 has 14 stops of dynamic range. Now, to give you a reference, the human eye has like 22 to 24 stops. So we can still see better than what a D750 can see. But why this is important, I'm going to share my screen here for a second and show you these two images. Hang on just one sec.
And as you get that pulled up, I just want to comment on Henry. I do agree. I wouldn't buy one as a second system. If I was going to buy a camera and I was upgrading from a point and shoot, I would vary back and forth. I would weigh the differences between a mirrorless system and an actual DSLR, a digital single lens reflex system. And I would look at it and see which one fit my needs. But if I already was, as I am, invested in, well, not so much this camera, a good DSLR system, I wouldn't buy a secondary interchangeable lens system. I would just pack a little bit more creatively when I traveled.
Or convert completely over to the compact system and buy better lenses and stuff like that for that product.
If that was the route you wanted to go. Like if you wanted to get a full frame camera, but not carry something that weighs, I have no idea how much. A lot. Not going to throw this one.
Don't.
A lot, you know. It makes sense because the A700 is the full frame interchangeable lens.
A7R.
A7,
Yeah.
which weighs next to nothing, but it's still a full frame camera. So I think depending on the direction you're going when you get into interchangeable lens cameras, it depends on whether you want to go with, let's say, a Nikon or a Canon system, or you want to go with Sony.
Okay, now let's take a half a step back, though. I mean, think about this. We just talked about dynamic range. I tried pulling up a difference between.
Sorry, please jump back to that picture. I just wanted to, because he was popping things up in the corner.
But if you compare dynamic range between an A7R Mark II and a D750, I would imagine they'd be fairly comparable. Okay, so the dynamic range isn't a big deal. But keep in mind, you're buying these smaller cameras to have a smaller system.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a full-frame digital SLR sensor, the size of the sensor is directly relative to the size of the lens. So now you're buying bigger lenses. And with these, or compact system cameras, all of a sudden you have this tiny little camera with these big lenses on there. And a lot of people want to use Canon lenses or Nikon lenses on their compact system camera. So again, goodbye compact size. Now what you're doing is buying a whole new camera package with the body that's small. But you still have these big lenses. So where's the real benefit? You're still spending $3,000 on a new camera.
Well, and not to mention that if you have, let's say, a Sony A7 and you want to put a Canon lens onto it, you have to go out and buy a Metabones adapter, and that's going to run you somewhere between $300 to $600, and it's going to, at least in my understanding of them, limit the speed of autofocus. Not going to work as well as an actual lens for that camera should work. And the reason that it has that issue with autofocus is the A7 or any interchangeable lens camera uses a different focusing system and focusing style than the DSLR series does. And because of that, it has to have like a conversion in it, and it could be a good idea as a backup, as I think Don's referring to, but if I owned an interchangeable lens camera like a Sony, I would stick with the smaller Sony lenses. If I wanted to use, the Nikon 105mm macro, which even though I shoot Canon, I still think is probably the best macro lens out there, beside Don's magic 60mm thing, I would go with a Nikon. Or if I wanted, zoom lenses that were painted white, I'd go with a Canon.
Right.
I would buy the system that suited what I wanted to shoot.
Mm-hmm.
Or I'd switch halfway through for no reason.
All right, so let's check out this example of dynamic range here for a sec. So this is a shot I made the other night of the eclipse when I was hanging out with Gabriel and some friends and Sean.
You were looking at a different eclipse than I was.
Yes, well, that's the problem. The eclipse was only up for a short time, and what do photographers do when they're bored? And they have steel wool with them. They take pictures of steel wool. So this is the unedited, straight-out-of-camera photo here, and this is just a quick edit in Lightroom. So the dynamic range allows me to bring up the shadows and control the highlights of the steel wool without them blowing out. And you can see Gabriel perfectly fine. Yeah, that's you, Gabe.
Hello.
That is a massive difference.
What's that?
That is a massive difference.
It's huge. I mean, there's that. And you can see there's even a little bit of lens correction to straighten it out a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And the color is still fairly decent, and white balance is almost something that's still workable. So having the dynamic range, and by the way, this is a D700. This is not a 750 with 14 stops of dynamic range. I think the 700 has 8 stops or something. So you could do a lot better. So that's the beauty of having dynamic range. And when you're going to a place that's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity like Africa or Finland or Sweden or wherever you want to travel, you'd want to capture as much dynamic range as possible. So one of the things I would suggest when you're choosing a camera body or a system, try and pick something with the best dynamic range you can find. I think that would give you the most flexibility when you're taking these really, really important trips. Earlier, Phil, you made a really good point, though. What's the trip for?
Yes.
Are you going on a business trip? Are you going on a trip with family? Gabriel, you do a lot of traveling with family.
Yep.
You want it to be quick and easy. You don't want to have to stop and pull over and set up your tripod and do all that. What suggestions would you have?
So I bring. I'm sort of in two worlds about this right now. I'm battling lenses. My main walk around lens is a 24-105 f4, but I'm discovering more and more that f4 is just too slow for what I need and for the type of images I want to shoot. Now, it has become better since I got the 5D Mark III, when I realized that an f4 lens could actually have a very shallow depth of field. But for the most part, from now on, the slowest lens I'm ever going to buy is a 2.8, and it'll just kind of get faster from there. So I'm looking at the 24-70 2.8. But in all honesty, if I'm shooting even just like a friend's birthday party or something like that, I'm shooting with the 7200 2.8.
See, that's the thing. When you start getting into this better quality product, your lenses end up getting heavier and bigger and more expensive. So there has to be a trade-off. Okay, so let's take a half a step back here. Let's look at it. Use this trip to Africa as an example. If it's a once-a-lifetime trip, get the camera at the best dynamic range, which would be a DSLR of some kind, whether it's a A7 compact system or a mirrorless camera, I guess you can say, from Sony, with really nice lenses. So it's not a matter of weight; it's just a matter of, you know, a little bit smaller. Or it's a full Nikon or Canon kit. That's where you really have to start thinking about your lenses. If you're going to Africa, like on a safari type of thing, now you're getting a 200 to 400 f4 or a 500 mm prime. You're talking multi thousands of dollars for these things. If it's a photography trip, or if it's a trip when it's not really photography as your main purpose, like our friend Richard Mawini, who does a lot of stuff in Africa, he does a lot of missionary work and so on and so forth, where yes, he can go and take pictures, but he's there to help other people, so he's not dedicating his time to photography. He may go with, like if he has a full frame camera, a 28 to 300, or a crop sensor, an 18 to 250. More general purpose, an all-in-one lens. Now remember, guys, we got to remember what lenses are doing. The smaller the number, the wider you can see. The bigger the number, the farther you can see. So when you're trying to think about what lens you need, think about where you're going to be. If you're shooting a savanna, go with a lens with a smaller number, like a 10 to 20, where you want that really wide field. If you're doing street photography, everything's at a fairly safe distance. You can move in close, you can step away. Maybe just a simple prime 50 mil. You know, an f1.8 aperture 50 millimeter lens, $170 from Canon, $220 from Nikon. Nothing you really have to worry about being stolen. Plus, it's very compact and gives you very good control of where your focus is with the aperture of these things. So there's an example of what I would be thinking of if I were doing a very important trip, whether I'm going for photography or not.
Can I just go on a little tangerine here about... So how is it that... I mean, I see all these photographers are going on these once-of-a-lifetime trips. They're going to Africa. They're going to this place. And that most recent experience has been with Africa. And they're agonizing over, you know, they're adding a lens, checking their weight, adding a lens, checking their weight, agonizing over, do I bring, you know, my zoom lens that's fast because that means I can't bring these other two lenses? How is there not a service set up there where all you bring is your camera body and one lens, and then for a certain amount, you just rent crazy good fast zoom lenses wherever you're going? How is there not a service like? And the people that I know that are going, I mean, the one guy, he's a millionaire. It's not that he can't afford to do it. It's just that there's no service set up out there to do it. It seems ridiculous to me.
Mm-hmm. And especially with all the new rules coming into play and how much more difficult it is to travel now than it used to be. I mean, there's so many more rules. I sell camera bags, and one day the bag is the right size, and then all of a sudden the rules change, and no longer is it the right size, even though it still says on the bag package, this is compatible for air travel. I'm sorry, Gabriel.
Yes. I know people that have run into that issue.
Yes, and yeah, I'm sorry.
They're very yellow right now. I take my grilled cheese of adjustment. There you go.
I do agree that
there
should be a system for that and a service. And I don't know, maybe it's something that maybe no one's created, or maybe there's too big of a liability over there. But it's curious.
I think it's like
I'd wanna
Henry
know.
says, though. It depends on the destination. I'm sure there are some places where they would have a service like that, where you might go to maybe a third world country and they're not going to have that service.
Yeah.
You know, so interesting idea. And if you can make it a global option, then that's kind of cool. But again, we're not really creating new businesses right now. We're just chatting.
No, it just seems to me like, you know, like if you're going to run a safari service where all you do is bring people out to see the safari thing, and you know that 90% of your clientele is going to be photographers, and you know that they're agonizing over lenses, why not set up a service where they can just
Right.
rent the lenses from you?
I should talk to Henry's about that. Maybe people going on trips like this, Henry's can just ship it directly to the location rather than to a store for pickup. Yeah, something like that, right? Because Henry's does rentals, and we'll do a whole show on that. We'll bring Henry's Rentals on the show, and we'll talk about that. But in the meantime, let's just go to the Q&A for a quick sec. Don says, Phil, the Metabones adapters on Sony cameras with Canon lenses work remarkably well. He was surprised.
I'm happy to hear that because I will admit my information on the Metabones adapter is a little bit old. I was looking into them when they more or less first kind of started getting kind of put out there, and I'm happy to hear that it actually works quite well.
Metabones is one of the better ones.
Oh, yeah. And it's a good kind of compromise if you're looking for something like that.
Oh, Jennifer Wolf, Jenny says that there is a service. It's called borrowlenses.com. They'll ship worldwide and have packages for what you want to shoot.
Oh, it sounds good.
There you go, Gabe.
There you go.
Problem solved. Thanks, Jenny. And hello, Heather. Just
I like my rant more than the solution.
Fair enough. All right, so let's talk about another scenario. What if it's shooting an event?
Well, I want to step in for a sec.
Oh, step right in.
If I can. I'm going to go on my own little mini rant.
Cool.
We've been talking a lot about lenses, and we've talking a lot about cameras. You know, this camera, this got lots of dynamic range, and this one's got also a lot of dynamic range, but maybe doesn't have as much. And you know, this one's only $3,000, and this one's $2,500. We haven't set prices, but I'm making them up as I go. I think the more important thing, more so over camera, and you might have a difference of opinion on this, but in my opinion, it's more so over your lens than it is your camera. Because you can take a Canon Rebel T4i and put on an outstanding lens and take outstanding pictures. And you can take a 5D Mark III, or let's use a more realistic example, a Nikon D750, and put on a $170 18 to 55 and take terrible pictures.
Right.
Not saying the 18 to 55 takes terrible pictures, just in comparison, you will probably get a softer, less attractive picture than if you shot with a better quality lens. So, we're talking about cameras. I'm talking about cameras having lots of dynamic range, and it's not a need to go out and buy a new one. The camera you have will most likely take great pictures. Now, I will admit that cameras do tend to seem to at least get outdated a little bit faster than they should. When a new one comes out, it looks shiny, and maybe the one we have should be replaced. But to be honest, your camera will take great pictures as long as it has a good lens in front of it. And so if you're sitting there and you're thinking about, I have $750, I could put that towards a new camera, or I could replace my 18 to 55 or 18 to 105 with a better quality lens. Go with the lens. It's probably going to do a better thing. And Gabe was talking about he has an 24 to 70. Sorry,
24 to 105.
24 to 105, that's f4, and that doesn't really work for him, so he wants to switch it out for the 24 to 70 f2.8. I'm doing the opposite. I'm looking at the 24 to 70 f4. Sure, it's not as fast. It doesn't let as much light in, but it also has a macro mode on it, which it actually works fairly well. Now, it's a macro-ish mode. It just lets you focus a little bit closer, but if I'm driving around with one lens and my camera in my car, that seems like a better option. That way, if I stop on the side of the road and I see an interesting shot in a field, I can shoot the entire field. Or if I want to take a picture of a flower, albeit it's not going to be as good as if I had my actual macro lens, or if I brought along some extension tubes with me and stuck it on my camera, but it's going to get me a result that I'm going to be relatively happy with. So
I think the real point that I think you're trying to make is know your gear.
Yes.
Know what it looks like, know its field of view. One of the things we talk about for when we did the fireworks class is to know how wide your lenses are. Visualize, look through your lens and imagine how wide that is, so that when the firework goes off, you'll have a pretty good idea without looking through your viewfinder what you have in frame. I think that applies to just about everything. You should always know your gear, and that's why I wanted to get back to that whole, the wider the lens, you know, the farther the lens, understand what's happening when that goes on. So, as an example, with an ultra-wide-angle lens, it's, you know, 10 mil, I have a 10 to 24. That's what I use as my ultra-wide. When it's at 10 millimeter, it's stretching everything out. The wider your lens, the more it's going to stretch and expand. Your depth of field, it's going to expand the people on the edges, it's going to shrink the stuff in the middle. That's just the way the lens works. What are you trying to say, Phil?
I was going to say, with that picture you shot of the spinning steel wool, I'm assuming you shot that really wide, because if you look at the building that should be flat, it's bowed.
Yeah, that was a 15 mil fisheye. I happen to have the lenses from Sigma because we just had the photo day trip in Algonquin in Sunday morning, and then Sunday night I still had the lenses. So 1 minute we're shooting with 150 to 600 Sport Sigma, 120 to 300 f2.8s. Next minute we're slapping on fisheyes and trying all kinds of cool stuff. So yeah, that wasn't my 10 to 24, but
okay. Well, I would kind of hope not, because a 10 to 24 shouldn't bend that much. But
no.
You know, a fisheye is a great example of just the exaggeration of that bending. Because all it does, it takes your picture and it purposely makes it super bendy.
Right.
And sometimes that can be a cool result, as with the spinning steel wool, and other times you probably don't want to see that. Like if you shoot a portrait with a fisheye lens, you're going to get some weird results. But
you know what, Phil? It's really cool that we're talking about it, because that is a perfect example of thinking about what shot you wanted. So, for example, 1 minute we're shooting the moon. When I was going there, I didn't bring all 6 bins of Sigma lenses. I narrowed it down to 3. You know, I put the super telephotos in there because I knew that we'd have some Canon and some Nikon friends there, and I put some fisheyes in there, and that's pretty much it, because I knew that would probably do some steel wool. So I thought about where we were going. I thought about what we'd be shooting, the moon and steel wool, and I brought some interesting lenses for that specific thing. And this is what we're trying to get across on the show is, forget about what lens you have or what lens you want to use. No, forget that. Think about the image you're trying to make more than what lenses to bring. Once you can think of the image you're trying to make, it'll just naturally make sense what lenses you need to bring with you. That's my point. All right, so back to shooting scenarios. Shooting an event like the Vaughan Film Festival. Gabriel has disappeared again. He's like the Flash. He's in and out. But he and I always shoot the Vaughan Film Festival together. I'm sorry, Dixie is just going crazy down here. This is what she does. She bites things, and any second she's going to smack my face. So, there you go. Gone. All right. So the film festival, there's all kinds of different things we're shooting. 1 minute we're shooting celebrities like Michael Madsen and whomever else is there. Dora from Dora the Explorer was there 1 year. The next minute we're doing runway. Like the red carpet, when I'm taking just pictures of the people walking up the red carpet. Then we're at the after parties, where we're shooting in very low light situations, and it's everything from portraits of people to ultra wide angle, like entire scene photos. What am I going to do? Show up with 12 different lenses? No. I'm going to think about 3 lenses tops. What's going to be perfect for that scenario? So I'll bring 2 cameras, just because you have to have a backup. I might use 2. I'll probably put 1 lens on one lens on another. That way I'm using 2 of the 3 lenses right there. And the 3rd lens I would just keep in a pouch and be able to just switch off if I need it. So my thought would be something like the ultra-wide, the 10 to 24, maybe a telephoto, a 70 to 200, and then probably like a prime lens, a 50 mil or an 85 mil prime for portrait. Those 3 lenses can do everything I'd want to do. I could sit back in a room and zoom in for the flat depth of field with a telephoto. That's what that does. I'm using flash, right? So I'm not relying on super high ISO. I don't need to go out and buy a very expensive camera with amazing high ISO. I can use what I already own, a 7100 or a D700, both decent cameras enough. But when you start going higher than 1200 ISO on either one, it really starts to break up, and that's not what you want to offer your client. So I use flash. I can keep my ISO around 640, maybe 800, maybe 1000 if I have to get more ambient light in the background. But the thing is, I know what these cameras are capable of. I've used them enough. I've reviewed my photos enough. I understand what these lenses are doing to my image and which ones to use for which shot. Thoughts on that, Phil?
I agree. And the biggest thing you hit on there is, you understand your gear. You're comfortable with your gear. Because you can have great gear, and if you're not comfortable with using it, it's probably not going to work for you. So being comfortable and knowing that if you put this lens on in this situation, this is the result you're going to get. But you're also getting awfully close to something that we were talking about earlier. And that is the idea of knowing what you want to get from a situation or from a day. Let's say you're going out for a day, you're shooting, let's say, waterfalls, as you did last Sunday, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
Or you are going out and you're going to be driving down country roads looking for old barns to shoot, or you're going to be taking pictures of birds. It's a good idea to know what picture you want to get first. Now, not necessarily the exact picture. Maybe I want to get a picture of a cardinal, or you want to get something. Know the idea of the picture you want first, and then work backwards from there. And working backwards from there will help you figure out what lens you should bring. And once you know what you want, what lens you should bring, it makes it a lot easier to plan for your day. So before you go out shooting, plan it out and have an idea of what you want to see from your shots, so that you know what you want to bring. So if you're going out and you're going to go taking pictures of the eclipse or just the moon, you want to take a picture of the moon. You want to be close to the moon. So that immediately is going to tell you want to zoom in.
Right.
You need to bring a larger lens. So working backwards from the shot that you might want to get, or the idea of the shots you might want to get, because you might not have an actual picture in mind, but just the idea of the shots you want to get will help you pick the lenses or the gear that you need to bring.
So, for example, night photography.
Yep.
Using a tripod. Generally a wide lens, because you want to get everything. You don't know where it's going to be. You want everything. And then you can do light painting, and with the wide lens, you'll see if you happen to go outside the lines, so to speak. Bees and bugs. You want to take pictures of that kind of stuff. You're not going to use, I don't know, a tilt shift lens.
No, you're going to get your macro lens, or you're going to get your standard lens, and put some extension tubes on it. There's
telephotos, step back and zoom in.
Exactly. There's always more than one option, but
right.
Starting with the picture you want to take and working backwards.
So, Phil, you were on the macro class that we did with Don, who's watching right now. We noticed this. We had all these Sigma lenses with us, and people kept on asking us what lenses to use. So, again, that's the point of the day trip. Please keep asking. That's fine.
Yeah.
Like, really, it's okay. Ask us what lens to use. It's all good. The reason why I'm bringing it up is just to help you think about these things yourself. So, Phil, we're shooting macro. We have 1750s, we have 105s, we have 150s, we have 180s. How did you answer the question to people when they ask, what lens should I use?
Well, it depends on entirely what they're trying to shoot. If you're taking,
because we were there for macro, right? We were there for close-up stuff. There were bugs. There were these things.
Yeah, but what kind of bug you're trying to shoot? Like if you're trying to take a picture of a bee, maybe you don't want to use a 60mm macro or a 70mm macro. Maybe you want to use a 105mm macro. The difference between that, now, Don will poke me apart on this one, but I'm going to simplify it down to being, if you're shooting a picture of a bee with a 60mm macro, you might be that far away to get the bee to appear, larger than life in your shot. With a 100mm, you might be that far away. 150, you might be that far. Hold on. There we go. Like that far away. So ideally, the higher the millimeter, the more it's zooming in. So the farther away you might need to be to get that larger than life shot. Now there's a lot of other stuff going on, but the advantage to that is if you're shooting things that you don't really want to get close to, maybe use a slightly larger lens in the macro side of things.
Or be a daredevil and take pictures of pit vipers with a 50mm lens or whatever you used.
Exactly, depending on the situation. See, I'm allergic to bees, so I don't want to get close to them. But I'm not allergic to pit vipers, so I'm...
That's great. All right, let's go to the Q&A for a quick second here. Andrew says, has anyone thought of or tried shipping via courier, for example, the equipment they want ahead of time, so it's at the destination when you arrive? Sorry. Actually, a lot of people do that. When I was going to bring Dave Black up for the Daytripper Expo, he was going to ship all his props up ahead of time, and that was an added expense to get him up here. Brilliant idea. And if you have a lot of gear to ship or to bring with you, ship it ahead of time. as long as you're shipping it to a place that can receive it, keep it safe, and have it there ready for you when you arrive. I think that's a great idea. And then you can just ship it back the same way. There's lots of places that do that, lots of professional photographers that will ship the gear ahead of time. A lot of Nikon ambassadors will have all their gear shipped by Nikon to the location. So all that's...
And yeah, as long as you have someone to receive it on the other end, I don't really see a problem with doing that, as long as you pack it well enough, too, so it doesn't get damaged on the way.
Right, absolutely. Rich says he always likes to use two bodies, one long and the second ultra-wide, or 35 to 50 millimeter, then switch for the one appropriate for the subject. Exactly. This is called knowing your gear, and that's, I think, should be the title of our show, is knowing your gear, because really that's what it's all about, is understand what your lenses are looking like. Now, how can we do that? How can we figure out, like, how can we determine? Yeah, Gabe, you've shot with your 24 to 105 for years. Is it because of that that's making you now understand that you don't need all that it offers?
I like the variation on the zoom that I get, but I just noticed too many times, big nature of the photography that I do, a lot of times it's in low light. You know, churches have bad lighting, reception halls notoriously have bad lighting, so I just need fast. You know, like, you know, the 2.4, whatever, is too slow, 2.8, whatever it is. I'm looking at the 1.2, you know, and I just need faster glass. So I know that, especially a lot of places I shoot, you're not allowed to use flash. I know that the 4 is just too slow for what I need it to do. I don't like putting the ISO up above 3200. And
again, that's because you know that it starts to break up. You've used it enough, and you get this. You have this experience behind you. It's key, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, you know, if I look at my Lightroom library, I've got 126,000 photos in there, and everybody knows. Anybody that's watched my Lightroom workflow, you know how brutal I am on my photos, and you know that you have to be a pretty good photo to stay in my Lightroom library, because you're going to be deleted from disk pretty quickly, you know, on this the third step of import. So, you know, those 126,212 photos, it's probably close to 400,000 photos. Those are just the, you know, the 1/4 of the ones that I wanted to keep. Mm-hmm. So yeah, I've shot a couple photos, and you know, I'm looking at the settings while I'm shooting. I'm looking at what's working, and I'm looking at what isn't working, and I'm adjusting my future goals accordingly.
By the way, Jennifer, when you were going on your rant, and then she answered your question that there is a place, she says you're welcome, but you can still rant if you'd like to. So. Yes, rage on.
Thank you.
You know, even when you raised your arms up, that adjusted the white balance. Look at that. Now you're white again.
Just going to do the whole show like this.
And Phil, Dawn says that you've got it in a nutshell. I'm just leaving the camera on you, by the way, Gabe, while you're doing that.
All right.
He says, there's always more to it. The subject and the background are both important. But if the subject is shy or bothered by you, you need to accommodate. Absolutely true. P.S. Don't use a fisheye lens to photograph a bear. There you go. You got to use the right lens for the right subject. It's absolutely true.
You can do it.
Once. Yeah, you just got to run fast.
Once.
Now, if the bear takes his own picture, who owns it?
Oh my good God! Here we go again.
The bear triggers the shutter after it's done, you know, eating your lifeless corpse.
And Fred says, "What if you
remember we had that?"
What? Go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. Finish yours.
We had that one with the GoPro at the animal center thingy thing where I had it right up against the fence. Bear came up and licked the GoPro.
Yeah. Yeah, you could use an ultra wide for that, sure, as long as you have a fence between you and what you're shooting. Fred says, what if he wants the bear to look bigger? Any thoughts?
When you're doing the selfie, just walk closer to the bear.
Okay. So obviously, Fred, Gabriel does not care about your well-being. No, I mean that is one way to make anything look bigger. You to use a wide-angle lens. You're probably joking asking the question, possibly. But seriously, if you do want to make a bear look bigger, there are tricks by using the proper lenses. One way that I really love is to get close to the bear in your photo. Crop it in close. Use a telephoto and get in close. Don't leave a lot of other stuff. Or if the bear is really, really big to begin with, put something in there for scale. You know?
Or if you're relatively close enough, shoot down and up at it so that it kind of fills your frame. It looks like it's looming over you. That way it'll appear larger, like the illusion of size.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it's a tiny teddy bear, you can still make it look a lot larger. Or
put like a loony next to its foot so people can tell how big it is in comparison to the money.
That's a great idea.
But make sure you use a toonie, so it's a bear being compared to a bear.
Oh, yeah, that was a reply to Don, Fred said. So, yes, if you want to use a fisheye lens, you can make the bear look bigger.
Okay. The bear fell off a copyright.
Actually,
well, that's Peter.
Jenny. With a bear.
Did I already tell my bear identification joke?
I think you should tell it anyway. No, not on this show.
So it's in, I'm forgetting a lot of the details, but it's in BC. Basically, they have grizzly bears and black bears. And I can't remember the classification for them, but it's basically if you see a bear up in the mountains and you don't know what kind of bear it is, run away from it and go up a tree. If it climbs up the tree and kills you, it's a grizzly bear. If it knocks the tree down and kills you, it's a black bear. So that's the bear identification.
Isn't that the other way around?
I think it would be the other way around.
It could be the other way around. Like I said, I don't remember the details, but I remember it was a black and a grizzly, and one of them will climb up the tree and kill you, and the other one will just push the tree over and kill you.
Or it'll pose behind a...
Blackberries will blackberries. Blackberries will just crash. The black bears will climb a tree.
This is a shot from one of our day trips to the Northwood Zoo. And she has the right idea. She's in there nice and close taking a picture of the bear. Mm-hmm. You can do that in this environment. I would not do that in the wild. All right, so if anybody else has any thoughts or questions or scenarios they'd like to know about, please go ahead and post it in the Q&A.
So I want to, sorry for being absent a little bit. I am the tech support in my house, and Trish was having some problems getting her pictures into Lightroom, so I had to go down and do the tech support on that. But I was listening to the conversation, and I would like to co-sign on what Phil was saying about, like, I've still got my Rebel X Ti sitting in the other room. We're going to be giving it away pretty soon, probably at Goodwill or something like that. But I took that the other day and I threw my 7200 on there and took a fantastic picture. And I would say, everybody's, they get geekgasms and geargasms over the next body and the biggest body and the new body and the 5D Mark blah 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 and everything like that. But when I'm shooting a wedding, 9 times out of 10, somebody will come up and say, "Oh, what camera you got there? How many megapixels?" Oh, cool. You know nothing about photography. Mm-hmm. But it's the one person that comes up to me and says, "Oh, what lens is that?" It's like, you know something about photography because you know it's more about the lens than it is about the body.
Yeah.
And you throw a sweet piece of glass on a mediocre camera, you're gonna get better photos. So I would always say, upgrade your glass. And the other thing too is that glass is for life. My gosh, I mean, I've got my 7200 2.8. It's like it just came out of the box. I think that thing. When was the earthquake and the tsunami in Fukushima?
It was about 2 years ago, I think.
No.
That long ago?
I think it's either 10 or 11. Like it's a surprisingly long time ago. But I also want to jump in when we search that. We've been talking a lot about having 2 bodies. It really depends on what you're shooting. If you're shooting for yourself, you probably only need 1. If you're just getting into shooting on the professional side, you know what, heck, you probably only need 1. If you get in and you're shooting at a level in which you are, making enough to warrant having 2 bodies, and you're not going to put yourself into debt buying a second body that you're never going to pay off with photography, don't buy a second body. But if you're getting to the point where you need where you're shooting enough and you have someone relying on you to take pictures and you have no access to other cameras, then maybe get a second body.
I'm going to actually take that a step further. I'm going to say that if you have any expectation of delivery on a product, you should have a second body.
Or access
And one of
to
your
a
bodies,
second camera.
Yeah, and your primary body should, if at all possible, shoot to multiple cards.
Yes, exactly. Because
that's the
this is just
primary
being a
reason I
professional.
upgraded to the 5D Mark III.
Is so you could have one setup on your SD card, another setup on your compact flash. So if one failed, you had a backup?
Yeah, so the way I have it set up is every time I take a picture, it writes it to my compact flash and the SD card at the same time.
Yeah.
So, which if my compact flash card dies, which I've had a couple of them now, and one SD card die on me, I know that the pictures are backed up on the secondary card. And then when I come home, I take out the compact flash, I start transferring over the photos. The SD stays in the camera until all the pictures are backed up on my computer, on a secondary hard drive, and on the cloud. And then, a few days later, I'll delete the cards.
Mm-hmm. And that's really my point, is when there's an expectation of delivery of product, you have to make sure that your product, your photo, is protected and you've captured the images and they're safe and you can finish the job properly. If you only have one camera, it doesn't matter if you're just starting out. If you've accepted money to shoot a wedding, you have to have the gear to finish the job.
Mm-hmm.
And if, God forbid, you've got your camera set up on a tripod and Uncle Bob knocks it over as he's trying to duck behind you to take a picture or something, and your camera's toast, what are you going to do? Borrow Uncle Bob's camera to finish the job? No, you grab your second body. Well, I know, right? And you got to do what you got to do. But I get where you're coming from, Phil, and I totally respect the point that if you don't have the money, don't buy a second camera. That's a given. But if you don't have the money, don't get into shooting wedding photography, and don't get into shooting these events that are super important.
I see. I'm slightly on the other side of this. Because if you're just getting started, you probably have things you're paying for. A house, maybe your car, the ability to drive to the shoot. And I know it might be the opposite way of thinking, but the chances of something happening, especially because when you shoot a wedding, you probably don't have your camera set up anywhere away from your body very often, if at all. The chances of something going wrong are significantly lower than, if we had a film camera or if we had something that, there was actually, possibility of something going wrong. If we had a digital camera and we've put, 50, 60,000 shots through it, I'd be getting a little worried that something might go fishy on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
But, these things are built to be pretty robust, and they, in theory, shouldn't stop taking pictures. Mm-hmm. I would be concerned as I was shooting with just one body. If I knew that, if something happened to this camera, I wouldn't be able to finish taking these pictures, I would be concerned about that. Mm. But the chances of something going wrong are relatively small. And to be fair, and this might be the opposite way of looking at it.
That's why I get this way, because I've had it happen. I've been shooting events, I've been shooting wrestling, and all of a sudden the Schwartz just stops firing.
Nikon, but
whatever. All of a sudden it's just not firing.
These things can go wrong.
Wrestling, and a very important moment's happening in front of me, and it wouldn't focus. It just would not focus. If I had a second body, I could have gone, got the shot.
Maybe, but your second body might have had a different lens on it, might not have had the same result. And the other thing is, when you get into accepting money for any work you're doing, if you're taking pictures, if you're cutting someone's grass, it's the same thing. You have to have insurance to cover yourself in case of this. Because let's say you had two bodies, and you were driving to the gig, and you stopped for a coffee at Timmy's, someone broke into your car, stole both your cameras. What's going to happen? You're not shooting the wedding. They've already accepted money from you. They might sue you. You need liability insurance to protect you. If you get into, hopefully no one does this, but let's say you get into shooting drones at weddings and you lose control of the drone and it makes a hilarious YouTube video of it going full speed into the groom's head, you're getting sued. Or the bride. You're getting sued. You need to have insurance to protect yourself. And that goes anytime you're accepting money for a service you're doing. If in photography, it's absolutely important. You need to protect yourself against these things. And I'm not saying that insurance is a guarantee to protect yourself. It's not. But, if you don't have the money to get a second camera, ideally it should be maybe one of the first things that you purchase when you have the money to do it. But, if you want to get into shooting, you don't. There's already enough hurdles to go over. I don't think you have to spend as much money as possible.
Gabe did it really smart. I think you did it really well, because when you first started off, you had, you know, a Rebel, right? And then you worked and you saved up, and then you put some money away into a fund for new gear for your business, and then gradually you built up your kit, and then you went into a 7D, and then after that you still used the 7D with the Rebel as a backup, and then you went into a full frame, and so this is the progression. And I get that. I'm not saying go and spend all your hard-earned money right away.
Jumping back to the point where when you started, you had one camera.
Right. So I always brought it up that you know that I had one camera, and now when I'm courting a potential customer, and they say, "Oh, well, that's interesting. You're $2,800, and this person's $500. You know, why wouldn't I go with them?" And I'll say to them, ask them what happens if they're halfway through shooting your wedding and their camera dies. You know, they're cheap because they haven't dumped the money into, you know, 8 lenses. And if I'm halfway done shooting your wedding and my camera dies, I put it down on my hip and I grab my second camera. And if that camera dies, I grab my other 7D and I start shooting with that. You know, it's like I have backup gear. If my flash dies, I grab the other flash. If my lens dies, I grab my other lens. I have all the backup gear, and I've dropped a lot of money into this gear so that no matter what happens, I can capture this event. Ask them what happens if their gear dies, and then you'll find out why I charge more.
I'm down 2 flashes after shooting the last wrestling. 2 flashes I'm down.
Yeah.
I still had enough gear to finish the job and to make everything work. So...
But Brian, you're in a unique position where you have access to more gear than your average person, and Gabe
still pay for it.
Well, yes, but especially when it breaks.
Yeah.
But Gabe, when you started, you didn't have backups of everything, but you purchased the backups as soon as you could, and that's what I'm trying to get at. I'm trying to say that, like, if you're just starting, yes, it's a good idea to have backups. Yes, it's a good idea to have, you know, a backup camera with a backup lens and a backup, you know, flash, but unless you can afford to do that, don't immediately do that. Because if you're just starting and you're not sure if it's going to work for you and you're not sure when your next job is going to happen, don't spend everything you have to back something up that, if it's not making you money to start with, isn't going to make you money if you have 2 of them. I'm 100% in agreement that you should have a backup, but don't bankrupt yourself to start doing it.
Oh, no, not off the bat.
Jump to the Q&A. I'll speed this up a little bit. And no, a Brad's not going to be happy if you choose insurance over a secondary camera, but you have to have it anyway. I'm sure that you have liability insurance, Gabe.
Yeah.
And it covers much more than just your camera breaking. If you know, left your car in neutral and it like rolled into someone's car, or if you know, were driving to the bride's house and you had a little bit of a moment and you hit the gas pedal instead of the brake pedal and drove into the garage, you know, it's going to cover you for liability. It's also there that if something goes wrong and something catastrophically fails, your house burns down and it takes your backup hard drive and your computer with it, and you're not like you and you don't store everything in the cloud, it's going to protect you for when that happens. You know, the chances of that happening are astronomically low. Hopefully. It's that worst case scenario. Insurance is, and this is the one thing that I like to say, like I don't sell that insurance. I'm just a fan of it because it's a useful thing. Insurance is the one product you want to buy and never have to use. Ideally life insurance, because it doesn't benefit you. And if it does, then you're Elvis or something.
Elvis, nice segue.
Because you know he's flipping burgers with his life insurance proceeds.
Yeah, right. Okay, so we talked about a lot of different stuff. We've gone off topic. We've gotten back on topic.
Sorry about that.
we tend to do that. But the main point of this show is how do we choose the right gear for the job? So one of those things is 2 cameras, 3 cameras, 1 camera, small camera, big camera, what lens to choose. These are all relevant things. How to carry your gear is important. You know, you don't want to carry huge, big bags. You want to keep it convenient and comfortable. So try a lot of different things out. But let's talk about what we use. Let's talk about our own kit for a quick sec. Gabe, what's in your kit day in and day out?
Actually, my daily driver, surprisingly enough, because I have a laptop bag that has my laptop, an iPad, a MacBook Air, a whole bunch of kit in it at the same time. So my daily driver is my 5D Mark III with the 40mm Pancake. And I love this thing. It's a fantastic lens. It's fast. It's a 2.8. It's got nice depth of field, and it's small. It's not imposing. It's great for street photography. It's really nice for just driving down and sticking the lens out the window and stuff, and just capturing. I love the prime, just capturing life going by. Usually, if I'm shooting anything that's of any type of significance to me whatsoever, I usually got the 7200 on there. That's my this is important to me lens, and yeah, just that's
cool.
My baby.
Okay. Lovely. Phil, what about you?
I'm actually in a similar boat. I generally have a 50mm on a 5D Mark III. However, back I used to have a 24-105, and I used to use that for a lot, mainly because it gave me a great range and relatively good depth of field, as well as it gave me a pretty decently sharp picture. The 50 is great, however, because I let in a ton of light. If I'm going out shooting and it's going to be dark out, I can still probably handhold the thing. I don't have to drag my tripod around with me. It's wide enough that I can see everything I want to shoot. Now I will keep a few extra things with it. I usually bring around my Nope, I lost my earpiece, but that's fine. I usually bring around my, not terribly expensive little neutral density filter. So if I want to get into doing some super duper long exposures in the middle of the day, I can. And you mentioned camera bags, and you and I have a very similar camera bag, as we have the exact same camera bag, and that's this one.
Yeah.
And I have this camera bag. It stores a bunch of my stuff. It doesn't quite look like a camera bag, so if it's sitting, in the front seat of my car, or down in the well of the front seat of my car, if someone walks by, they're not going to immediately think a camera bag and immediately want to, just reach in and grab it because, the roof's down. Kidding, I always put it up when I have my camera. So I generally keep, an over-the-shoulder bag and, a couple, camera stuff in it. That would be my kind of every day going around and shooting. Alternatively, like today, I just had this thing sitting on my front seat and my business bag, which it doesn't fit into, just sitting beside it. And yeah, it's great to protect your camera, and I would recommend carrying it in a camera bag all the time, so it doesn't fly off your seat into something if you have to brake on the 401 when it turns into a parking lot. But
but it's the basic kit. It's a camera body and a 50 prime.
Yep, it gets me where I need to go. It's light enough. I can throw really, really cheap extension tubes on it and take macro shots if I want.
Actually,
it lets
Phil,
me. Yeah.
One of the stories I always bring up in conversation if I'm talking about travel is a story from your trip to Costa Rica when you were there with Martin and you guys went to the little cafe or something like that after hours, and everybody had their 18 to 250s and everybody had their all-in-one lenses and their whatevers. You're there and Martin's there with your 50 mil.
Yep.
You're getting the best photos of the little girl with the tapestries behind her and shallow depth of field and people at a cafe. I mean, that 50 is awesome what you can do with those things.
I'm trying to hunt that picture down right now.
Well, you do that, and I'll get into my kit. And basically, I shoot with a body. Usually, if I'm going somewhere, either my 7100 or my 700. And if I'm going somewhere to shoot, like the Vaughan Film Festival or wrestling or something like that, I'll bring both cameras. Again, 50 mil. I use the 1.8, the D or the G. Either one, I have both. I'll use the D if I want to flip it around backwards and use it as a macro, and I'll use the G, which is the autofocus AFS version, if I want better sharpness because it's actually a sharper lens. 1024, my ultra wide. I use that for most of the stuff I shoot. If I'm shooting wrestling, it's 1024 on the camera at all times. Usually at 24 mil because it's still fairly wide, but I get that ability to go really big and get the entire ring in the shot, or whatever I'm shooting, like at the Vaughan Film Festival, get the entire crowd in the shot. So 1024, 50 mil. If I'm doing my light painting here, those tables right over there, those are what I use for my light painting. I can literally just set that up and use my 24 to 85, because 2485, the one I use, the D I believe it is, has a macro mode. So I can go to 85 millimeter, which when you zoom in flattens depth of field, open it up to f4, very shallow depth of field from that, and flip it to macro mode and get really close, and proximity also gives me shallower depth of field, it's a macro. It looks beautiful, super shallow depth of field. I can get very creative, and of course I can close down the aperture to get more depth if I want that back. But those 3 lenses, that's all I have. That's all I use. I have a 70-300 VR. I don't like it. It's not a very good copy of that lens. It's a soft copy, so I don't really use it. But yeah, there's the shot we're talking about.
Yeah, so this was actually a 5D Mark II, a Canon 50mm 1.4 at some ridiculous ISO, and just natural lighting on a street, quick shot, and that's the thing I like about the 50s is they let in such a large amount of light that if you are traveling around at night, just using what light you have there, the light coming out from a store, you can get great shots without having to use a tripod or worry about handshake.
But the cool thing is, Phil, that you and Martin thought to think this way. You had the experience in the back of your mind to say, I'm going to be in a low light situation. There might be some interesting details to take pictures of. Let's keep our kit small and just go with a 50. It's not like you're going to be shooting wildlife at 9 o'clock at night. It's not like you're going to be doing ultra landscapes unless you're going to be going down there to shoot on a tripod and get long exposures and stuff like that. You're not going to need a real wide lens, so just bring a 50.
Well, the 50 has another great advantage, and the real reason that we had it on, or at least that I had it on, is it takes the size of your camera and it makes it a lot smaller. So it takes a camera going from, well, it's already kind of big, but you get rid of the lens hood, and it's not that big.
And that's the Sigma. That's actually a much larger 50 mil.
Yeah, this is the Sigma 1.4, where the Canon one is even smaller. So if you had, a Canon Rebel with a 50 mil 1.4, 50 mil 1.8 on it, or even the 40 mil 2.8, that little pancake that Gabe has, shooting at night in a potentially,
What's that, Gabriel?
He loves it. Not saying that it's an unsafe place, but anywhere you're traveling, and anywhere you're traveling on the street at night, the smaller your camera looks, the less expensive it looks.
Be discreet.
So exactly, if it can be hidden, if it can be small, I would prefer to give up on my super wide angle shots in a potentially camera steely place to protect my camera gear, to protect myself. Now, at the end of the day, if someone's like, "Hey, buddy, I want your camera," and they have a knife, they're probably going to get my camera. But for the most part, it being a little smaller is probably a better idea. So
which is why it's a good idea.
At least you're being mugged by somebody that knows their gear.
Well, in that case, you're kind of stuck. And I remember a couple of years ago, you used to be able to buy stickers for the front of your camera that would change it from like Canon to like Cameron and Nikon or something, so that you didn't have a branded camera in case the thieves were looking for brands. I'm pretty sure they just steal everything.
Yeah, I think they're just
like
mean
the people that walk around with the shoulder straps that come with the camera.
Yes.
Nothing says "please mug me" than a shoulder strap that says 5D Mark III on.
Oh.
Yes.
I definitely never took mine out of the box when I got my D700.
And not to mention, they're terribly uncomfortable and terribly useless. Now, I will say that people in foreign places are going to be a lot nicer than you might think. Martin and I were down there, and the first time we were down there, we're walking around. We went into a store, and he was looking at something for Doris, and he left his, I think at that time it was a D700 in the store. And we left, and we made it down the street, and then he realized he didn't have his camera. And like we went back, and she knew exactly who he was, and she was like, "Oh, you left this here," and that could have been a very sad end to a very long week for him. Yeah, and it ended up that someone was a little bit more friendly. So whenever you're traveling, regardless of what lens you have, bring this all back to the beginning. Whatever you have, whatever you brought, remember where it is, and keep it safe.
And offload your photos every night.
Yeah, and the moral of the story is that foreigners take pity on senior citizens.
Well, he did have his 65th birthday last Wednesday, so.
Oh, did he?
Yeah, happy late birthday to him.
Oh, happy late birthday to Martin. Yeah, I haven't worked with him. I've been on vacation for the past week and a bit. So.
I drove up to see him, and he wasn't in there. So.
Probably with Gary having a birthday lunch or something. But seriously, guys, that's really our point of this whole show: is know your gear, know how it looks, know how wide it is, know where you're going, and just think. Stop worrying about the stuff and worry about the photo you're trying to make.
Yes.
That is my biggest thing. If I'm ever on a day trip and I'm helping somebody out with a question on their camera, 9 times out of 10, if I see them just staring at their camera as I'm talking, I'm just going to stop talking. Put the camera down. It's not about the gear here. It's about what photo are you trying to make. Think about that, and then if you understand your gear, you'll know what to use.
And if you don't, you can work backwards.
Yeah, work backwards.
I find in my experience the most accomplished and amazing photographers that I've shot with have the least amount of gear. So I have my home base, and it's this huge suitcase, and it's got a kickstand, and the handle works as a flash holder, and blah blah blah. And one of the most amazing weddings I ever shot was with Peter McKinnon, and he shows up, and he's got a little shoulder bag, and he's got 3 lenses. That's it, 3 prime lenses, and no flash, no nothing. He had a 5D Mark II or 3 at the time, I can't remember.
Probably 2.
And he shot. Probably, yeah. Oh, just a sec. Headphone died. Okay. And he shot the entire day with some of the most amazing pictures I've ever seen with 3 prime lenses. And I'm dragging all this stuff behind me, and every now and then he let me borrow one of the prime lenses. And he's got, a 50 1.2, an 85 1.2, like the fastest, best primes on the market. And it would blow your mind what these things can do.
In the right hands.
So, in the right,
in any hand, as long as you practice enough.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, even in my hands, they made a couple nice pictures.
And we've talked about Pete before. Peter is one of those rare birds that he doesn't care about gear. He just wants the picture to look good. He has the vision in his mind what he wants the picture to look like before he even touches a camera.
Mm-hmm.
So that's really what I'm trying to hope more people get to, is to think about what they own, how it works, and then that'll answer their question as to what they bring. Let's go to the Q&A for a quick sec. Mark says he loves his D610 strap. Humph. You know what, Mark? More power to you. It looks good on you, too.
Yeah, but it's a Nikon. Nobody's going to steal it.
Oh,
and Don says he was just on some recent waterfall day trip or something like that, and he says he used the 24-105 and the 100-400 exclusively, those 2 lenses on the trip. Mm-hmm. And we're talking about the Daytripper session. Don and Ron Clifford were both on this past Sunday's session as guests, and they got to make some photos, and I can't wait to see what Ron has done. Don was kind enough to share some of his results on their community already. But, 24-105 and a 100-400, some people call them general purpose lenses. The 24-105 is like a kit lens that comes with a full frame camera, and still L-series glass is still very good.
Great lens.
Don't get me wrong. And the 100-400 is a workhorse super telephoto from Canon. It's not the 500F whatever prime. It's not, something like that. These are both really reasonable lenses. You can pick up 100-400s for like $1,300, $1,400 used. Great equipment that you can get at a reasonable price, and this is somebody he knows his gear. He knows what he's going to do, and he has a vision and works toward a photo. So if Don can do that with those 2 lenses in a situation where I have 6 whole freaking cases full of really, really, really good Sigma lenses, it's pretty impressive what you can make with the gear you have if you know how to use it. Also, ouch from a fellow Pastafarian too, Mark says. But it's Nikon. Yeah, a little comment. And Blake says Ron will have his done when he's back from Antarctica. So here, let's see this. Ron Clifford comes with me to Algonquin Park 1 minute. Next minute, he's in Antarctica. The life of a photographer. I wonder what he brought with him on his trip. I guarantee you he brought a 16-35. He loves that lens.
Probably a camera.
And a camera, yeah. Okay, so anything else to add before we
You get there and it's like, all right, I got all the lenses. Oh, I forgot my body.
Oh,
just get that adapter and just stick them onto your phone.
Forgot the batteries.
Oh, yeah.
The oleo clip.
Yeah, right, exactly. Anything else to add to this this topic before we say wrap up, guys?
Yeah, quick side note. You talk about Peter having an eye for shooting. if you want to practice your eye, borrow someone's film camera. Let's say an old, film camera with a 50mm lens on it. Put a roll of 24 pictures into it, and try and shoot what you would normally shoot. You're gonna have to stop and think about it a whole lot more than you normally would, and it's gonna make you think about shooting a little bit differently than, I can hold my camera shutter down and take, 30 pictures of the same thing. It'll make you think about it a little bit.
Gabriel, I'm looking at devil look in your eye. I had the camera turned to you the whole time. What are you thinking?
He's frozen on my screen.
And then when you go to develop it, you'll realize that there was a light leak in the camera, and you just got 24 exposures of white.
But you practiced. That's the important part.
Well, you know what the secret is you go up to it, you think about what you want to shoot, you get it all framed in your head, you take the picture with your digital camera, you look at the settings, you set your film camera to the same settings, and you click.
Well, you got the first part of that, and that is to plan it out in your head before you take the picture. And the thing I find
the digital camera, okay.
Start with shooting film is you have to think about your pictures a lot more. And I find there's a difference usually between people that started shooting film and people that started shooting digital. Is digital, you have that disposable picture aspect. I can take as many as I want. If I don't get the exposure right in this shot, or if I don't get the framing right in this shot, I'll just take 4 more. Which sometimes can work, especially with macro. Shooting lots works. But for normal shooting, think about it a little bit more. It'll make it easier down the road. You won't have to spend so much time going through Lightroom and deleting the pictures you don't want, because you just won't take those pictures.
Well, and that goes to the point that I always say, one of the arguments is like, oh, digital is free. Just take sit there, throw your 7D Mark II on auto and take your 500 frames per second or whatever ridiculous amount it shoots. And what I always argue, especially being a father and a husband and owning 2 Virgin on 3 companies, is that digital is not free. Digital costs time. Mm-hmm. Digital costs a fair amount of time if you overshoot, and that time is worth more to me than buying a roll of film. While I'm sitting in here, let's say in the early days, weeding through 5,000 wedding pictures. I look out the window and my wife and son are playing in the backyard, right? So while I'm shooting a wedding, I'm being very conscious to get the pictures I need to get, but not to overshoot, because I know that overshooting does cost, and that's a price I don't want to pay.
Yep, for sure.
Well put.
And Blake says he recently shot 2 rolls of film on a photo walk. He needs to get them developed still. It was different. And that's true. I mean, this is what we used to do, this stuff back here, boxes of slides. This is what people used to accumulate. Now, instead of these boxes taking up space here, I have hard drives taking up space behind the computer. So it's a similar concept. I think ultimately it always comes back to think before you shoot, know your gear, and that, my friends, is what we're going to leave you with today.
Sounds good.
It was a very useful prop. So I just want to remind everybody, before we close off the show tonight, please, guys, we don't have any photos yet for our photo challenge. This photo challenge is Elvis. I posted a picture of Angel today that I thought was kind of cute. My cat, my previous cat, Angel Dixie, who's right here right now, hasn't worn Elvis glasses, but on the community, I posted a picture of my old cat, Angel, wearing these little Elvis glasses. Yeah, it's kind of fun. I was looking for something kind of fun and spirited like that. I wasn't asking for people to dress up like Elvis, just like a vibe of Elvis in a photo, something that's a little different, thinking outside the box. And hopefully, if all goes well, we're going to have an Elvis tribute artist on our show next week to help us pick the winner of these photos. If we have no photos, the poor Elvis tribute artist is just going to be on our show playing, something like some old Lonesome Hotel or something like that. So
maybe I'll throw a picture in on that. I won't participate, but I'll post a picture of something I feel is Elvis.
Sure.
Maybe a couple. I'll see what I can do.
Yes, just take a picture of, what is it, peanut butter and deep-fried banana sandwich?
Exactly. That's what I'm talking about.
There you go. Or an old dog.
You got it. Or PCB, or there's so many different...
PCB?
TCB, taking care of business. Little lightning bolt.
Different thing.
Or even Memphis, like something related to Memphis. Or there's so many different things that can relate to what Elvis was all about. And you know what? It's just a really great thing going on with this the Flaming Star Elvis show that's coming up in November. My wife Shelly is going to be the stage manager at that show, and she just rocked the house at the expo. I mean, she knows what she's doing. She's amazing. So I'm going to support her with this, and not like I can do anything. I'm just saying hi, Shelly. But the Flaming Star tribute show is going to be great. Check it out if you guys are interested in any kind of Elvis tribute shows. And it should be a lot of fun. Hopefully we'll have these guys on our show next week. See how that goes. Anything else to add before I say goodnight, guys?
Do we have a quote this week?
We do have a quote. It's a very good quote, actually. Okay, so if you don't have anything to add, I do. I'm going to remind people that we have a Bring on the Night class this coming Sunday night. It's a makeup from the Saturday night at the expo, which got rained out. It's looking like it might even rain on Sunday, which kind of sucks, but we'll see how that goes. This is going to be an amazing session. It's going to be light painting. We've got a few tricks up our sleeves, something that Sean and I are going to practice tomorrow night, which is going to be a blast, quite literally. So, guys, this could be an amazing session. If you're interested in getting some really good hands-on night photography, light painting, drawing with light kind of stuff going on in your life, www.daytripperphoto.com. It's only $100 for the session, and it's just going to be an absolute blast. It's going to be so much fun. And also, October 29th, now we're getting to my favorite time of year, guys. It's going to be zombie time soon, and of course, I get all excited when Halloween comes along. So this October 29th, Daytripper Photo is going to be at the Thornhill Woods Haunted House doing an indoor haunted light painting session. You know those photos where people are like rising from the tombs, or there's orbs floating around a cemetery, or you see a ghost of a person in a window? We're going to recreate these images in this haunted house. We're going to teach the techniques on how to make these really kind of creepy types of photos. As well, we're going to be in the haunted house with all the scary people going around doing light painting of all their props and things like that. It's going to be just a creepy, awesome, educational time, and it's only a $100 session as well. So check this stuff out all at www.daytripperphoto.com, because these sessions are going to be awesome. So much cool stuff.
Yeah, looking forward to that one.
Yeah,
Good.
shoot me the information on the one on Sunday. I'm oddly enough in the area.
Oh, well.
Maybe I'll swing by and see what's going on.
Do that. And if anybody else is interested, just register. Like I say, it's only $100, and you get a 4-hour night photography class, including light painting, drawing with light, multiple flash, rear curtain sync, possibly some flaming shards of metal, and possibly things. I can't say the rest of it. There's lots of cool stuff going on, and until I test out this craziness,
let's just say there's lots of waivers.
Phil was talking about insurance earlier. It's not going to help you with this one. All right, let's go to the quote of the day, and then we'll say goodnight. We've been talking all day about gear and what's the right stuff and so on. Yusef Karsh. Everybody knows Karsh. Amazing black and white, deep texture, good contrast, black and white portraits of people like Ernest Hemingway and so on. He says, "Look and think before opening the shutter. The heart and mind are the true lens of the camera." Could it be more true and more appropriate?
I like that.
So look and think before opening the shutter. The heart and mind are the true lens of the camera. I agree with that 100%, and that's really the whole point of the show, is think before you shoot. Think about what you want to create. Think about what you already own and how you can use the tools you have. Then make an image the best you can with those tools. And everybody go out and make a great Elvis theme photo. Have a great week. We'll see you all next week when we review these photos, if we get any. If not, we're just going to end up chatting with an Elvis and having a good time.
There you go.
Doing all that kind of stuff.
I think we should throw in some information next week on, if you're at an Elvis festival, how are you going to shoot it?
We will absolutely do that. That's a great tip. Actually, my first photography experience shooting in low light was shooting Elvis tribute shows with Shelley in Oshawa, all kinds of different places, Stage West. And that was my best learning experience ever, was shooting in those low-light situations. That translated into wrestling. That translated into so many other things for me. So I can't underestimate how important it is to shoot in these scenarios, and that's a really great opportunity to get into that. Good point, Phil. Good point. All right, guys. Where can folks get a hold of you, Gabriel? Because now that you've got all these new businesses popping up and all these new things to shoot, I mean, you should patent this grilled cheese white balance thing. Because I mean,
yeah, no,
awesome.
it actually works. The white balance is kind of yellow right now.
Grilled cheese, and you're perfect.
Have you not
There you
eaten
go.
your dinner?
No, it's a little bit off-putting munching on a grilled cheese while on camera.
All right, so you have it up on your lower third there, but tell folks about yourself.
Yeah. So if you want to contact me for photography, bousquetphotography.ca. We do portraits, we do events, corporate events, weddings, bar mitzvahs, basically anything that involves a camera makes me happy. So
You know what I love? What makes me happy? Every single show, since show number 1, you've made the quote, as long as I have a camera in my hand, I'm happy. I love that.
Oh.
That makes me happy. Beautiful. Okay, so Phil, how about yourself?
Well, you can get in touch with me via the email I have stuck into this lower third, as long as it's working.
Yes, it is.
So that is pzoratto@canfin.com. Alternatively, you can get my phone number from Brian or the Newmarket Henry store. They have a bunch of my cards there. We can take pictures. However, we probably will do better on discussing finance stuff. Not that we discussed financial stuff tonight. This was not financial advice.
No, good point.
But if you want to go out shooting and you're in the Oshawa area, I like shooting. But for the most part, I do more finance stuff than
Cool.
take pictures now.
And if anybody needs to come on day trips, www.daytripperphoto.com, like I've already said a few times. And that's about it for us tonight, guys. Thank you all so much for sticking with us throughout the show. Hopefully we had some information that kind of had an eye-opening moment for y'all. And y'all, it's like I'm talking like Elvis already. Y'all. Thank you for watching. Have a great week. We'll see y'all next week.
Sounds good. Good night.
Bye.